Hey guys, Ken and Chris here from CMX Powersports with you again. We just finished uncrating and building the new CFORCE 1000 Touring. We're here to do just a walk around on it for you guys today. As we always say, there's already videos out there on the market with this unit, so we're not going to hit you up with a whole bunch of specifications, although they are fairly impressive for this class of a machine. We're just going to go through a few of the things that we like about the machine. My previous personal unit that I owned was the previous generation CFORCE 1000, so I've got quite a bit of experience and quite a bit of things to compare it to. I put some 1,600 kilometers on my last one just in the mountains, so I've noticed some stuff on this one that we want to talk about. We'll get into the video just a second here. We'll be right back. Okay guys, so we're back. We're going to start right here at the front of the machine, probably where most of you guys that trail ride and do a lot of mudding spend your time. And usually if you don't have a mud kit or a mud pro or something like that with a rad relocate kit, sometimes your radiator can get dirty. Most of the machines out there, you're kind of trying to spray through little holes like this with your pressure washer or your garden hose to get in. The very first thing that I noticed when this came out of the crate is that this piece just unclips from in front of your radiator. So your rad cage just unclips. It's very easy. I just did it. Everybody laughed at me. Hang on, old man working. Help. There we go. All right. Okay. But then you have total full access to your radiator, and it just makes it that much easier to clean. I think that's just a great little thing that, as I've said before, CFMOTO listens to their customers. They listen to their dealers. That I thought was really cool. That's just a small thing, but it's so big when you're out on the trail, you're up in the mountains, and you're trying to get in there and you maybe don't have a car wash or a pressure washer that you can just blast away. You might be on limited water. You're gonna get a lot more of that water to the rad to clean it with this out of the way. So good job, CFMOTO. Another thing that I wanted to point out after owning the previous generation, which I actually really loved that quad, I wanted to point out something on the suspension. They've recalibrated and redesigned the suspension a little bit. I can say that it rides better than the previous generation, and that's kind of the point. You know, every generation things should be getting better. It should be like that in every manufacturer. And I can say that after I took the time to properly learn how to set up my suspension, I got my suspension on my last one set up and it was perfect. Everybody thought it was a different machine than the stock, just to take the time on that. We will do a video on suspension setup in the future here sometime. I was fortunate enough to spend some time on the phone with the guys at Elka Suspension when I was first learning, which we're also an Elka dealer. I was first learning how to set up suspension, and it may surprise you what I learned there. So one day we'll do a video on that. But I wanted to mention on the suspension on this machine, we'll get the cameras to come on in. In the past, we're used to having a clicker up top here. There's multiple positions, fast, slow, which basically kind of like a medium soft thing. We have compression and rebound adjustment on this. And if you guys can get in here, I don't know if you can, there's a red knob on the side of the shock here now. I think that that's a big improvement. On mine, the knob was integrated in the base of the shock, and it was really hard to know where you were setting or feel those clicks when there was mud all over it. So I'm glad that they put a knob out here. It's not, now you're not turning it this way and grinding mud into where the setting thing is. I think that they just thought about that, and I think it was a really good improvement. They also added a couple more little vents, purposely aimed vents in the fender wells to bring down that heat that we're used to inside of the engine compartment, and we're going to get a little bit more into that stuff after. But Chris, you had a couple things that you noticed up top here. Why don't you guys talk about that?
So one of the first things I noticed when we unboxed this was that they completely redesigned the handlebars. Your grips are better, they're more grippy. The throttle has been repositioned, so I think it's going to give you less rider fatigue. Like you can almost use it just with your hand. They've taken away with that, I hate to say it, but cheaper looking steering post, and they've redesigned it with this nice metal finished with the CFORCE label on it. Looks a lot better, feels sturdier. I think it sits higher too. The hand guards, they've made less pivot points in them, which is going to be a lot better because they actually would move around even just using the quad. You'd see them move. Didn't matter how tight you got them, they seem to move around. And you've got your controls here for the screen. We're going to go into that later too. They've got a completely redesigned layout here.
Okay guys, here we are on a previous gen CF and a current gen 600. What Chris was talking about on those handguards, I think for me is very important. It's something that I noticed on my 1000, and I don't have one of those in the shop right now to show you, but they improved the handguard design just by simply getting rid of one pivot point. I found when riding, if I took an impact or something, even a light one, these will move up and down. And I feel like they just had too many pivot points in them, and they've completely solved that on the new 1000. I think we're going to see it on the new 6s, the new 5s, all that coming forward too. They just improved the handguard design, and I thought it was really cool that they did that.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay guys, Ken back here with Chris again. A couple things I wanted to talk about, some more upgrades that we have for this year. I noticed on mine riding it in the mountains and in the trees, and this is not specific to the previous gen CFORCE 1000 touring by any means, but one thing that I've always really liked on ATVs is when they lose the body paint from the fender, the edge of the fender. And the reason for that is because when you're driving in tight trails and bush and things like that, that paint tends to scratch up and mark up a lot easier than this kind of a, I wouldn't call it a matte, but it's kind of a tough black plastic finish without paint on it. So there's nothing that's going to tear off. The worst that you'll get is a mark, but you won't see a color difference. And for me, that kind of adds to the longevity of the aesthetics of the machine. That piece is going to stay looking good, where a lot of them, especially on this front corner right here, a lot of them that are painted there, that's the first place brush and stuff is hitting, and it's ripping the paint off of that panel. So I kind of think, for me anyway, it's a small thing, but it's a cool thing. So if you guys can come around here, I want to show you something else. I can't tell you how many people asked me, why isn't there a glove box on it in the fender like the 600? So the CFORCE Touring 1000, they went ahead and incorporated that fender glove box in where everybody was asking for it and where we as a dealership asked for it, and I'm sure many others. So again, that's just a good job, guys, at CFMOTO. For listening and having such a great R&D department, because something like that, especially on a larger machine and that's painted, that you don't want to hang fender bags and get all scratched up. And a lot of guys these days are using their phones. I mean, we're going to show you on the dash, there's phone stuff, you know, but a lot of guys like me are out there when I still had my CFORCE, and I'm ripping my phone out of my pocket trying to look at my GPS all the time. If I have it right here, I pull it out instead of trying to, you know, do this on the, it's just way simpler than trying to get in and out of my pockets on the trail, and it eliminates the need for a fender bag. Plus, fender bags, let's face it, they get dirty and they look ugly within about 6 months if you're trail riding. So I think this is cool. It seems like it's really well sealed up. It's got an automotive style weather seal on it, so you shouldn't get too much stuff. And guys, I want to tell you, this weather seal that's in here, it's not just a thin piece of rubber. It's actually shaped like a teardrop, so it thickens up towards the body, which is really remnant of automotive industry style seals. So I think that they did that right. And one last little thing on it, the seam for that seal is at the bottom, not at the top. The purpose is the water comes around and it drains out by the seam. So good job on that. Let's hop around to the back, and I want to show you guys a couple things back there that I like as well. Okay guys, here we are. We're kind of moving around to the back of the machine. I just want to mention what I was talking about on the front of the machine with the fender flares. Let's say that these are fender flares. I feel like they're just a part of the body, but the fender flares do wrap around in that same durable material all the way around the back tail lights and stuff. So if you are backing up and you have some brush, it's going to be the same scenario as the front. It's not going to rip off the paint. Something on the racks that's changed that I didn't notice on mine, that because it's not there, is there's so much tension that you can get in like a poly plastic rack, sorry. And they've included some tie down edge pieces really nicely and put in a really nice spot. I always wanted to see at least 1 or 2 metal places that I could attach a strap in case I need to get just a little more tension. And I noticed that on this. So obviously there's a steel skeleton underneath the plastic part of the racks. So in my mind, I'm seeing the strength here that I can go under with the strap. In the past, we haven't had anything at the front that I could actually get under the metal. So they've actually incorporated a metal tie down position right at the front of this rack. And they also have those at the rear of the front rack. It's just cool to see some metal there that I can get a little more with my ratchet strap onto in the event that I'm on some rough terrain and whatever. One of the other things I want to point out at the back of the machine is the muffler on it. I think it's pretty cool. There's other people that have done the same kind of thing, but CFMOTO went from a tube style single outlet to a dual outlet muffler. I guess they needed a little bit more flow with the fact that they increased the compression in the engine a little bit, and they've taken this engine bone stock up to 84 horsepower. They did that again by doing some compression tweaking. They did some head stuff. This is an 8-valve motor. So obviously when you do that, you need it to breathe a little bit more. And I really believe that's why they made it a dual outlet exhaust.
Looks a lot better too.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Another thing CFMOTO changed is the ergonomics on the passenger seat grips. They've changed the angles. They've made them a little easier for the passenger grip in different positions, and they've changed the seat material as well. It feels softer. It seems like a more resistant material. I don't think it's going to tear as easy. And then they've added a strap on the back here. That's going to be a lot easier to remove the seat and put it back on. I don't know if you guys know, but the last model was a little more difficult, especially if you have bigger hands. It was a bit of a pain. Yep. Another good change they made is they've made it easier to access the panel to check your oil. It's just right here. Just come around so we can show. All you gotta do is you just pull that off there. There's a little tab. Comes off super easy. Way easier than last year's model. You can get in there and change, or check and change, much easier.
Hey guys, just a couple of things that we had on our last video. We had some questions afterwards about panels being removed, so I didn't want to forget that. I wanted to pull a couple of things off. I'm at the front. I'm going to show you what's under the middle section of the front rack, and at the back Chris is going to show you what's under the middle section of the rear rack. And it might surprise you guys a little bit, but I think that the changes they made were good and they were for a reason. After Chris is done telling you what's under the rear rack, I want to talk a little bit about why back up front. But for now, I'm going to tell you this front panel removes very easily. It's 2 grommets and it just pops off very easily. So what you've got under here is you've got a couple of electrical accessory points. You've got your factory OBD port where we plug in to do some scanning and stuff like that if you ever have trouble. We've got our radiator and rad cap, sorry guys, and then we've got our coolant reservoir. So pretty simple up front. One other thing I forgot to mention is, as always, CFMOTO comes with the winch, but not only does it come with the winch, but standard equipment is a synthetic cable, a winch stopper, and an upgraded strong CFMOTO clasp. So I think they did a really good job with that. It looks nice. We'll head over to the back and Chris can show you what is underneath this same panel on the back of the machine.
So last year's model, as some of you might know, the battery is up front. It was really easy to get at, easy to access if you needed to. There's a reason that they took it out and put it here. We'll get into that. But as you can see back here, battery's still really easy to access. You just take this rear panel off, it's just right there. No problem getting at it.
Okay guys, here we are back at the front of the machine. Chris was talking about what we think the reason for the battery location change was, which actually I got a comment on that. That's a really easy to access location. And I know the question is going to come up in the videos. Well, what if my rear storage box is on? How easy is that going to be to access? Well, the answer is pretty darn easy compared to a lot of the competitive models, because with most CF, if you buy a CFMOTO box, it's as simple as turning 4 clasps and taking the box off, rather than taking body panels off and fenders and inner fenders to get to your battery. So to answer that question in advance, if your rear box is on your CFMOTO, and if it is indeed a CFMOTO rear box, it's going to come off very easily. It's going to be like a quarter beer job. So it's going to be very, very easy. But I want to talk a little bit about the changes they made right here. Because our previous gen CFMOTO 1000 owners were used to seeing our battery kind of in this area right here. When this unit came in and it was getting PDI'd, our first thing is always, where is the belt and intake, or belt and CVT intake on the machine? So Chris and I crawled around, we took some panels off, and we found out they're right up under in here. To give that a little perspective for you guys, if you snorkel your machine, it's going to be about here, unless you put a really long, big, tall snorkel on it. So I'd say for 90% of the riders out there, you know, or maybe excluding the mud people, this is going to be higher than you need in most cases, unless you're planning on going up to your handlebars in water, which we do not recommend or endorse at CMX Powersports. But yeah, the reason is they put the snorkels up into here, and Chris can point out the vents. There's some on each side and some in the middle. What the purpose of that is to ram air into those snorkels, so we've got fresh air continually going in there. The other thing that I noticed about the ergonomics of the way that travels through the engine compartment, especially the middle one, is it creates more of a flow through your engine compartment that exits out the back of the machine, keeping your legs cooler. I think they put a lot of focus on that, because the previous gen, my legs got warm. Absolutely. It wasn't like my legs were burning or I was going to die or anything, but you noticed it. Yeah. You noticed it there for sure. So I think those are the reasons that the battery was put to the back, so that they could put some snorkels up higher on the machine and keep a better airflow at the front of the machine, exiting to the rear. Next, I'm going to hop on and I'm going to go through the switches and the dash with you guys a little bit. The U-Force 10 video, we didn't have enough time to go through the dash, but I'm going to throw that in on this video and hopefully answer everybody's questions before they have to ask them. Okay guys, here we are in the cockpit of the CFORCE 1000, so to speak. I just wanted to run through some switches and then the screen here with you real quick. So on this side, we've got an upgraded set of switches again, which I think CF has put a lot of attention and effort into making sure that they've got top of the line switches and gauge packages, especially compared to the first gen of machines. Here we can see we've got lights. We've got our start button, the same as the last one, except for it's been redesigned. We've got mode. We've got these buttons here, which navigate us all through our menus and through our screen displays, which I'm going to show you in a minute. While I'm going through those screen displays, guys, just know that I'm pushing these buttons here. I love the fully integrated in and out winch switch. It's not an add-on to the bottom of the switch cluster that we're used to. It's right in the factory switches. Of course, with CFMOTO, we've got our signal switches here as always, our horn switch, and we've got our hazard lights. If you move over to the other handlebar, Chris had already touched on this thumb throttle. I'm going to do it again just because I'm a little bit older and I'm starting to get arthritis in my one thumb joint from all the years of riding. But what I can tell you, it felt a little bit different to a couple of our staff members to start out with. But what I can tell you is this throttle reaches way farther into my thumb, so I can drive more with my hand and my wrist than I have to with my thumb. I like the option of being able to give my thumb a rest and then come in and drive with my palm. And with this throttle, you absolutely can. And somebody that's maybe got a little pain in their thumb will really appreciate that on a long ride. They upgraded their 4x4 switch a little bit again. As always, all of the switches on the CFMOTO are light up, but they've upgraded this to, it used to be kind of a, you turn the switch and then you move a flap and then you push 4x4 for lock. This one is just into 4x4 and 4x4 diff lock. Couldn't get any more simple than that. I think it's a nice tight switch. It looks to be very watertight, waterproof, and you know, should keep all of the elements out. So now if we want to move up to the screen, you'll notice that this is number one, it's a beautiful screen. You're going to note that it's full color. I think this screen was, what was the width of this, Chris, do you remember? 8 inch, 7 or 8 inch screen, something like that. But you can see the mode that we have it set it in here. Right now we're two-wheel drive. We're in normal mode. As I said before, we've got sport, we've got work. As we turn on our diff lock, we're used to what happens. The front wheels will generally ignite, light up, so to speak. So I'm just going to go through this dash a little bit, and then I'm going to go through some of the settings and show you guys some of the really cool things in it. You can see that there's a little dot right here. That's auto dimming for night and day driving, just like your automotive vehicle would have, your car, your truck, whatever. You can see a couple of things here. We can see that our lights are on. Obviously, we can see all of our generic information that we're used to seeing, as well as right now we've got our electronic active downhill assist engaged, and we can see that in the top left of the screen. We can also see that Ken's hooked his phone up to it here, because here's my phone and there's my battery level. There's a couple of different reasons you'd hook up your phone. I guess, you know, first and foremost, you're out on the trails and you get a call, it's going to show you on your dash. You can link that in with the microphones and stuff in your helmet if you choose to do that. The cool thing is if you're out working, your forest ranger or whatever it is going to be able to see calls. And if you're just a regular dude out trail riding, you might get a call from your wife that it's supper and you don't want to get in trouble. Comes up, it's going to show you right here. So let's just go through the rest of this. I wanted to tell you guys that there's a couple of different gauge modes on that. The gauge mode that was there was just the factory one that it came with. I've talked about this before. This is the CFMOTO Ride app and MotoPlay. You can scan this, put the app on your phone, and then all you need to do is go in there, set up your account, then that app is connected to your vehicle. That has things like geofencing on it. That has things like what your last ride was. It's got a GPS built in so it can tell you where that was. It can tell you how long it was. It'll also give you vibration reminders on your vehicle if somebody's messing around with it. And it will also tell you if your ECU needs any updates or anything like that. If you haven't checked out CFMOTO Ride, it's really cool. I suggest doing it. Again, this is where we can go in and play our music through our dashboard to our Bluetooth headset on our phones. It just keeps everything closer for a tighter Bluetooth connection. And there you go, you've got your phone calls, your contacts, your recent quotes, all that stuff right there. This here is just gonna be, if you have any warnings on your vehicle, how many miles are on it, and this button cluster on the side is, it's really just like using a push and click 3-button menu thing. It's really easy to use. It'll even give you your software versions and things like that. If for any reason you think your machine needs an update to the PCM, call your dealer and you can actually tell them which version you have in there based on what it's showing you on the screen. So I'm just going to go back. I'm going to go out of this. I'm going to go down to the settings screen. Just want to show you guys some stuff in here because most people want to see that. In the driving modes, this just shows you what driving modes you have. You can pick those from the main dash or you can pick them from here. Downhill assist, guys. So pretty simple. Your downhill assist control is either on or off. Most people that I know would have it on. It activates the engine braking when the vehicle's going downhill, as it says there. That'll be a very nice option when navigating steep, rooted, rocky downhill trail. It's really nice not to have to worry about your throttle when you're doing that and just keep yourself at a nice pace. You can speed that up with control from the throttle, as everybody knows. Our EPS mode here, we've got automatic, min, mid, and max. All of that is going to be rider preference, I think. I like automatic because it's a variable control then. It's not set to just one. If you have it set to max and you're driving full speed, it's going to feel probably it's going to feel like there's too much power steering there. I like a little bit of feedback, so I'm going to leave that on auto when I'm driving. Connection here, you can see helmet 1, helmet 2 as I was talking about. These are where you would hook up your Bluetooth helmet devices. Oops. Those are where you would hook up your Bluetooth helmet devices and you control them from your dash. Obviously brightness is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go into that one. Subject style. So here's where you can change your dash, guys. Isn't this cool? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got 4 different dash options. And we've played around with all of them. I think they're all really cool. I think it's really cool to be able to change it. And this actually here, it's kind of neat that we went in here. This will also show you on your dash, all of the dashes. It will show you how many helmets you have hooked up with Bluetooth right beside your phone. So if you're riding and maybe your wife is on the seat behind you, but your child is behind you on the ATV, if that helmet disappears, you know that something's either malfunctioned in his Bluetooth or he's out of range of you, and maybe you should look in your CFMOTO factory supplied mirrors. So a couple cool, really cool things that they've added there, I think. I call them infotainment settings. So we showed you all of the dash styles, time settings. You know, you can go from 24-hour to 12-hour, pretty generic, pretty basic. The units, the same thing. I mean, you can go from metric, you can go to standard, you can do that for all of the things, even temperature. So you can go between Fahrenheit and Celsius. And obviously you can pick your language. But I think that gives you guys a pretty good overview of the dash panel and what it looks like. I think they did a great job, and I'm gonna say the word, even though I had some comments on it last video, I think it's super, super, super. Okay guys, just one last thing I wanted to mention. One other change that I noticed on the 3rd gen CFMOTO 1000 is that they've changed the tires up a bit. They're still a 27, they're still a CST. However, I don't see a model on them. When you look at this tire, you can see an obvious difference in the tread pattern compared to the Stags. I actually liked the Stags on mine. I never changed them. And usually and historically, one of the first things I change on all my machines is tires, aside from when I switched over to CFMOTOs, because I got the Stags on them already and I didn't feel the need. I had 1,600 and some mountain kilometers on those Stags, and they still, it's in our showroom, ready for sale, my trade-in. And those tires don't look like they've got more than probably 400 kilometers on them. So I feel like they set up really well. As for these guys here, time's gonna tell that story. It's winter in our province. It's been minus 46 with wind chill here all week. But once spring starts and we get this bad boy into the mountains, we're gonna give you a little bit more of what we think on the tire. And we'll be honest about it. I mean, I don't know. When I see a tire without a model on it, it says to me that it's a little less expensive tire, but that doesn't generally mean that it's less quality. And you know what the other side of the equation is, I guess, Chris, if I'm being honest there, I would sacrifice going down a model in the tire to get everything else that they've upgraded on this machine. And reality is, in business, you have to keep your cost in line somehow. And if you're adding all these ridiculously awesome goodies to it, if I got to go down a model and tire, who cares? As long as it keeps me on the ground and keeps me from slipping down the mountain, I'm going to be okay.
Exactly.
So I guess that's going to kind of close up the video for us today, unless you had anything else to add, Chris.
No, I think we covered it pretty good. If you guys have any questions, we'd be happy to go over anything else that you're wondering about.
Yeah, we're doing our best to keep up with the YouTube comments. It is just Chris and I doing that, so we're doing our best. Please just keep patience. If we don't answer you for a day or two, we will, and if you request a video, we will have it out. So in closing, thanks Chris, thanks team. Everybody, have a great day. Oh, I forgot. Take care.